the next thing I'm going to read you is also the last thing I'm going to read you. It's a short story, so it'll take a while, so not much variety, I'm afraid. It's also the opening story and the closing story in my latest collection. Don't ask me how that works, but I should read the first one. It's called Bob and Jane, a fable in two indistinct parts. Bob and Jane loved each other. They knew this because they frequently told each other so. "I love you," Bob would say. "I love you too," Jane would say, giggling. "Please don't ever leave me," Jane would say dolefully. "I won't," Bob would say, tightly grabbing hold of her. "I need you too much." Yep, Bob and Jane loved each other, and they knew this because that's all they ever talked about. They sat on the grass in Hyde Park, the hot August sun blazing in the clear blue sky, the scent of rose and honeysuckle blossom carrying to them on the warm wind. "Do you know what it is I love about you?" asked Jane. "No," said Bob, suddenly looking serious, for this was a conversation about their love, and thus of great import. "It's your strength," said Jane, stroking his flabby bicep. "You're so big and strong, I always feel secure with you, you know, I always feel safe." "For more than nasty monsters and things," added Bob. They liked to talk in baby voices. They did this a lot, because they loved each other. "Yes, that's right," said Jane, snuggling into his chest like a little fluffy rabbit. "Ah, my little fluffy rabbit," said Bob. He may have been boring, but at least he could spot a metaphor. He cradled her in his arms as she nuzzled under his jaw. "And do you know what I love about you?" asked Bob. Jane nuzzled more actively by way of response. "I love the way you're so fun and natural and genuine. I feel so relaxed when I'm with you." Jane looked up at him with her big brown eyes and smiled before hugging him tightly. She liked what Bob had said. No one had ever called her fun before. Bob liked what Jane had said to him. He'd never been considered anyone's tower of strength before either. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," he replied. Bob and Jane watched the scene around them as they lay on the warm grass, holding each other's hands. Nearby they could see other couples talking, kissing, drinking beer, simply sleeping next to each other. And Bob looked down at Jane and thought how beautiful she was. She reminded him of herself. "We're so lucky," said Jane. "I mean, look at all the other couples here, and none of them love each other as much as we do. We were destined to be together, weren't we?" "We'll always be together," said Bob. He smiled at her and gave her a little peck on the cheek. "Other people can't understand how we feel about each other." She smiled and gently kissed his ear. "If we ever split up, I don't know what I'd do. It'd be like losing an arm or something." Bob smiled. That lovely gap-toothed, tarted smile that reminded Jane so much of Tom Cruise. "Don't worry, nothing will ever split us up," he said. "We'll never be apart." Bob and Jane's friends used to say they were joined at the hip. Of course, they haven't seen their friends for a year now, but they didn't care. Because they loved each other. Bob and Jane were tired. Being in love really takes it out of you after all. And still warm from their joint shower, they snuggled up on the stuffed cushions on the sofa taking sips of red wine. Bob rested his head on the cushion as the world ambled on outside. The cushions smelt of burned oils, Egyptian musk and lemon. They smelt of Jane. Bob loved the cushions. "I got a letter from Jess yesterday," whispered Jane. "Really?" To be honest, Bob wasn't particularly interested. Jess had nothing to do with them. But then he remembered that maybe Jess had said something about their relationship, so it could be important. What did it say? Jane scrunched up her nose like a little hamster as she tried to stop herself from sneezing, and Bob gave her a big hug. "Oh, I can't remember," Jane said. "But do you know how she addressed it?" Bob shook his head. "She addressed it to Bob and Jane. See, everyone thinks of us as a couple now." "Just one big blob of love," joked Bob. Well, actually, he meant it, but he used a jokey tone in case even Jane thought it was too sad. Jane didn't think it was sad. She thought it was one of the most lovely things Bob had ever said, and Bob only ever said lovely things. They kissed and then lay back on the sofa watching the birds and squirrels in the trees opposite. "Look at all the little natures dancing around," said Jane. "Little natures," said Bob.